The Design Cycle by Team Handsome. I'm Gareth Caton.
I'm Zach Mori.
And Peter.
And I'm Aurelio Bellotti. The design cycle is the process used by engineers around the world to find solutions to the problems with which they are tasked. The process follows the steps of ask, imagine, plan, create, and improve. These steps are used in tasks ranging from creating new pencils to landing on the moon.
In the age of computers and modern technology, the engineering cycle often focuses on advancing into new frontiers. Yet old problems such as access to clean drinking water still plague much of the world. The task of creating a fabric bucket is intended to aid over 1 billion people worldwide who do not have access to clean drinking water. Without this clean water, they are more prone to diseases and illnesses. Our plan was to create a fabric bucket that would allow individuals to carry water from reliable sources such as wells into their homes. In order for the bucket to be useful, it must fit into a 6 by 4 by 4 box, must not contaminate the water it carries, and cannot be longer than 24 inches when full of water. This ensures that it can be carried by the handle and not drag on the ground. To prevent the need of making trips to the water source all day long, the bucket must hold 1 gallon of water for a minute without leaking.
As we did our research for watertight fabrics, we came up with a list of denim, canvas, and nylon as potential candidates. These materials are not waterproof already as the restraints require, so we needed to come up with waterproofing methods. Most of the solutions we found were marketed as waterproofing products, which were beyond the requirements of the project. The methods of alum, detergent, turpentine and soybean oil, and beeswax all play off the chemical properties of polarity. Of all the combinations possible using these ingredients, we ended up choosing to use canvas and beeswax. With these two ingredients, we could make sure that all the possible bonuses were covered and the product would easily be reproduced by the targeted customer.
In coming up with the design for the bucket, we calculated the volume to weight ratio for the different possibilities. In the end, we discovered that a simple cylinder would be able to hold the most amount of water with the least amount of material. We chose the dimensions of the bucket so that it could hold much more than the minimum requirement of 1 gallon. We also designed the bucket to have 2 different methods of carry, one as a backpack and another with a simple handle. Gathering materials should have been a simple task as only 3 materials were needed: canvas, beeswax, and cotton thread. However, there was some difficulty in finding enough pure beeswax at a reasonable price.
The plan required us to cut out all the needed sheets of canvas first. This included the 2 main pieces of the body as well as the straps. Then we needed to sew the bucket so that all the pieces would be accessible with the sewing machine. We chose to use French seams because they are the strongest and most waterproof. The most difficult step was completing the circular seam at the bottom, as it required a lot of maneuvering of the fabric on the sewing machine. After the entire bucket was sewn together, the next step was to waterproof the bucket. This was done in 2 steps. First, we melted the beeswax completely and brushed it onto all the surfaces of the bucket. Then, after the initial coat dried, it was melted again with a heat gun so the wax was well integrated into the fabric. After the product had been completed, we tested it by filling it with water. The presence of minor leaks prompted us to go back and recoat the fabric's bottom multiple times to ensure that there were no leaks at the seams.
After testing the initial bucket multiple times and continuously getting leaks, we decided to place another entire bottom layer on the bucket. In order to ensure that no leaks would occur, we further decided to implement another small bucket within the original design. This amounted to a total of 3 layers of fabric on the bottom of the bucket.
In designing our project, we had many challenges to overcome. The first major challenge was making a hydrophilic fabric hydrophobic. The way we decided to overcome this was the use of beeswax and extra layers of fabric on the bottom of the bucket. Other challenges we had were because of extra credit multipliers we decided to go for, such as having to make a waterproof seam on the bottom of our bucket, as well as making the bucket totally biodegradable and also locally sourced from a third world country. These design aspects limited how our project could be made and what materials we could use.
The Fed competition did not go as well as it could have. The overall focus toward getting extra points for extra credit took focus away from the main requirements. The bucket held water without any leaks all the way up to the 1 gallon mark, at which point the pressure on the bottom became too great and the water permeated the fabric. Since it did not pass the minimum scoring criteria, it was not part of the competition. However, if it had reached the minimum criteria, then it would have likely received a very high score due to all the score multipliers.
There are multiple ways that the project could have been improved, but each one involves a trade-off. Using the multiple layers of fabric would have reduced the permeability and led to a larger possible volume, but increasing the weight and size to a point where it may not have fit in the box. Other teams achieved great success using paraffin wax instead of beeswax, but it is not biodegradable as is beeswax. Having a larger base would disperse the pressure exerted by the water over a larger area, but again would increase weight and size, and would cause issues related to wearing the bucket as a backpack.
Here are a few suggestions for you. First, you would better start working on project early. Don't expect a 1 or 2 day project and score perfect. Second, spread out your meetings with teammates over time. I would recommend meeting on weekly basis, once or twice. Also, it's imperative to do multiple tests of your product ahead of design day. Trust me, you don't want to be embarrassed by a failure project in public. And utilize your free resource, TA and crafting center to improve your project design. A final reminder for you is try to get all the bonus points, but for your first priority, make sure your project works.
I bless the rain.